hello, and welcome to Beyond the Canon, the writer's room. We are so thrilled. Oh my God, I'm so gassed that we've got Nambi Kelly here.
Yes.
Hello, Nambi.
Hi, Nambi.
Hello.
Nambi, hello. I'm just going to do a little brief intro of Nambi here before we get started, so all of you guys can exactly see how much fire she is. So we have today the one, the only award-winning playwright and actress, Nambi Ikele. She was chosen by literally legend Toni Morrison to adapt her novel Jazz for the stage. That's Baltimore Center Stage and Marine Theatre Company. Nambi also penned an adaptation of Richard Wright's Native Son that has been seen at theaters across the country, most notably The Duke on 42nd Street, off-Broadway premiere, The Acting Company. Now, Yale Respiratory Theatre and the Core Theatre in Chicago, I think that was the world premiere. And Nambi has authored plays for Steppenwolf Theatre Company, Goodman Theatre, Lincoln Center, that's the Directors Festival, and internationally. She is a former playwright in residence at the National Black Theatre in New York and the Goodman Theatre in Chicago. She recently served in residence at the New Victory Theatre and as a Dramatists Guild Foundation Fellow. Nambi has been recognized with several awards and nominations, including the Adelco Award for Best Production for Native Son and a Drama League nomination for Best Revival for the same production, the Prince Prize in 2019, and a Dramatists Guild Foundation Writers Alliance grant in 2018 and 2019. Her current commissions include a play based on the life of Stokely Carmichael, and that's with Prince Prize Court Theatre, and one on African American icon Dr. Maya Angelou, and that was the North Carolina Black Respiratory Theatre. Nambi is a season 3 staff writer on Showtime's The Chi, and I don't even know where to go, because this is the most spectacular. I feel like there's just more and more and more the more I speak. Nambi, this is spectacular. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I so appreciate being here. Sorry, I'm just sending an email to one of these producers. They're like, it's a casting thing. Okay, I'm here. Hey, y'all.
Well done, Saru, for getting through Nambi's.
Through all of that.
I was feeling for you. I was like, and this is the tip of the iceberg. That this is not a comprehensive, list of all the work that Nambi's done. But Nambi, I have to ask you, man, because Toni Morrison, Toni Morrison, I am just I bow down. How did that come about? How did it come about that you were selected by Toni Morrison to adapt Jazz? How did that come about? You have to spill the beans on that one.
It was just luck, honestly. Native Son, it is. It's all luck and the grace of God, right? Mm-hmm. Because Native Son had done really well at Court in Chicago. It was the highest grossing show, straight play in the history of the theater. I think it still is.
Nice.
And it was sold out before it even opened. Not because of me, but because of the history of the play, of the history of the book and relationship to, the book takes place on the same ground that Court Theater takes place on. So it wasn't, so it did really well, and there were publishers that were attached to the Richard Wright version, the original Richard Wright version, and which was co-written with Paul Green, which went to Broadway in the 30s, I believe, or 40s, must have been the 40s. And so the original publisher on it was Sam French, and they had right of first refusal for my show, for my publication. So the publishing company that wanted to publish my script couldn't publish it, but they said, we love you and we want to find something else for you. And so I was like, okay, I gotta pay my rent, because that's the real, I had to pay my rent. So they were like, Nambi, send us a CV. And so I was like, all right, here's my CV, but I gotta pay my rent. And then what happened was, about 2 weeks later, they were like, so Nambi, we pitched your CV to a writer, and the writer wants to work with you overwhelmingly. That's what the email said. And it said, and that writer is Toni Morrison. I was like,
Oh, wow.
It was so funny. I was like,
oh my goodness.
but when can I pay my rent? Am I gonna be able to pay my rent for this? But that was how it started. So I'm plugging my laptop.
Amazing.
That was how it started, and then how I got the first production is a funny story. To me, is funny because I'm also this actress, right? Yes. And I don't act as much anymore because I just don't have time. But I miss it anyway. That's a whole nother story. Mm-hmm. But I had this audition for a center stage for it was like some Shakespeare thing, and they had heard about Native Son, right? And so I walked into the audition. I had memorized my little monologue, and I walked into the audition, and lady was like, the director was like, who I won't name. She was like, so it's so great to meet you, and I heard all of this great stuff about Native Son and da 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 da. And I was like, okay, but I'm here to be Shakespeare, right? She was like, so let's so do your read, and I did my read, and she looked at me and she said, great. So what are you writing? I was so mad. Wow, I was so mad. I was like, where's my callback? Am I getting my callback? Right? But this is funny because I was haughty. I had a little attitude about it, right? I was like, well, actually, Toni Morrison's people just called me and did it.
You better recognize.
Yes, very bad.
And the funny thing was, sitting next to her was the literary manager at Center Stage, the then literary manager. And he was like, Nambi, is that true? And I was like, yeah, right? What about my callback? And he was like, well, we're going to call you tomorrow. And I'm like, about my callback. He did call me the next day. I did not get a callback, but I did get a production. Oh. That's literally how that production came about. Because I went to an audition and I had an attitude.
Look, amen to the attitude. I'll say amen.
Amen to the two, to Black Girl 2. Yeah, it was funny. And so we did the first production. And I had a second production of it, and I'm hoping to get another one before we publish it. So actually I owe someone an email about that.
Yeah, definitely. It's so interesting, isn't it? Because I think that, sorry, Siri, I know you're burning to say your question, but I think it's so interesting how in the sector, because I started off as an actor too. And then I remember, sort of getting into directing and training as a director. And the person who remained nameless said to me, you need to decide whether it's acting you want to do or whether it's directing you want to do. And and that really stayed with me because I think of like so many people who do it all, and I wonder if they had that same experience or like, the experience that you had where you just get completely overlooked for one of the skills that you have, the talent that you have, and because people find it really difficult to believe that we can be multifaceted. Like, do you know what I mean? Like it's more comforting for them really to see you as one thing. And equally it's really difficult sometimes as well to get the balance yourself, you know what I mean? Like I really think that the more work you get in one area, you know what I mean, and there's a demand there for you to keep churning out, for instance with yourself, it's plays, right? That how do you then strike a balance and kind of keep the other part of you alive and fed?
Interesting question. I don't know that I have an answer to it, but it certainly is an interesting exploration. I guess when I was younger, I used to feel like, oh my God, if I'm not on stage, it's gonna disappear.
Right.
And now I just feel like it kind of like what Saru was saying earlier, which is I'm here now, and this is where I am now, and this is what I'll be now. And then tomorrow I might be something else, Right. And I kind of received that. But also, I will say, in defense of that director, I am no Shakespeare artist. so I was like, if I get a call back, it'll be the luck of the draw,
Okay.
So
I think I'm very much.
You are
like
an amazing
Nambi.
actor, though.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
I think for me, it's kind of similar as well, because like I produce, but I also act. And I had a conversation quite similar to this with my agent quite recently, actually. He was like, Saru, like you gotta pick, like, you know, there's no shame in just saying acting is not for me. You know, you can just become a producer. And the thing is, the work is like the producing work is so much more easily accessible, because I find with acting almost feels like a lot of the times you're waiting for permission. You're waiting for somebody to say, you know, now it's your turn, now you can get up, now we can hear you. And I struggled with that, because I want to do things and I want to do them now. And with producing, I don't have to ask anybody. I just do what I want to do. I get where I want to go. And then sure, I'll stop by for an audition every now and then. And if I don't get it, that's cool. I got stuff to do. And I also I used to feel like I will disappear if I don't act. But now I know that I have the means and the capability to create for me to act. Amen. So I don't need your space for that. And I think it's just kind of owning that kind of way of thinking for me. But it's quite interesting. Yes, power.
Yeah, knowing your power and your agency, definitely.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I studied at the school at Steppenwolf years ago, in one of the many places that I've spent some time honing. And I remember we did this workshop. I can't remember who led the workshop, but I remember he said when you have an audition, he said, make sure you have somewhere to go after. And I thought that was such good advice, you know, like, and it's kind of, that memory was sparked by what you said, Saru, which is, well, I got stuff to do, right? I'm not sitting here wallowing and waiting. And I actually think that for me, like, it helps me stay alive in that moment, you know, and I've sort of developed a whole ritual around auditioning. Like, I used to be like, oh, when I was younger, oh, I didn't get the job, right? But now I'm like, hold up. I literally like hear my sides, right? And I do my audition and I walk out the door, right? Because my job in that moment is to live the life of the character. And they don't get to decide whether I did that. And that's how I take agency. I decide, I know whether or not I hit it. If you call me back, you give me a job, okay, that's the icing on the cake. But my joy space is not in getting the job. That's not the victory for me. The victory is living the life. The victory is surrendering into another human being's soul. And if I get to do that for a moment and I feel like I did that, then I'm good, you know, and that the job is the icing on the cake. That's how I think about it now. But I can afford to do that now, you know.
Right.
But I also think I got to a place where I could afford to do that because I started thinking that way.
Exactly.
So I treat an audition. I think about an audition as the first day of the room. I don't think of it as, oh my God, I'm auditioning. I think of it as, all right, I'm showing up and I'm here, you know, and this is the first day of rehearsal. Let's hit it, you know, and that kind of like relaxation. It's like you're a magnet, you know. At least that's worked for me, and I've worked everywhere I've wanted to work in the world, you know, as an actor. And it's funny because people don't know me that way now, but it's like, oh, no, boo, I got this whole other life.
Right, exactly.
That was all I did. And would have plays produced at the same time, like at least 1 or 2 productions a year I would have, you know, smaller productions. But anyway, it's a life, you know?
I'm certain people will appreciate that, for certain, you know, because it is basically kind of hearing a different perspective that kind of helps you soldier onwards. I want to move on a little bit and talk about your commission. You currently commissioned to write about Dr. Maya Angelou. I was hoping that you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Oh, sure. Well, the commission came out of the brainchild of Jackie Alexander. And he is the artistic director at North Carolina Black Rep. He's a wonderful, amazing, brilliant artist. He's an actor, he's a director, he's a great writer. And he used to be, I actually met him in New York years ago. He used to be the artistic director of the Billie Holiday. And then the Billie Holiday closed and went through a whole revamp, and since we've reopened. But he moved down to North Carolina. They gave him a house. I'm like, what's it like? He's like, I can actually park my car. You know, he's this great dude. And he called me up one day, and he said, hey, Nambi, I'm going to be in New York. And I said, okay, cool. Let's hang out. He's like, well, I intentionally want to sit down with you and have a meal. And I was like, okay, cool. And so we went to some little spot in Harlem. And he said, so I have an idea for a play. And I want to talk to you about the idea. And I'm talking to several other writers about the idea. And then I want everybody to submit like a treatment or, just some thoughts, what they're thinking about it. And then I'm going to take it back to my team and we'll make a selection about who we want to commission. And so I was like, so what's the idea? And then he told me, and I was like, oh, at first I had an attitude. I did. I had an attitude because I was like, I got to compete for this? What? You're not just going to call me up and give it to me? I had a little attitude. But so I was like, okay. And so, and I did some research because, obviously I know who she is and I know the scope of her life, but it was really like, but how do I make this into a play? Yeah. And so I did a little bit of prelim research and then I drafted some ideas based on that research. And then he called me up and he's, several months later and he's like, we've gone through all of the treatments and we want to work with you. And I was like, cool. And the idea that I had pitched was, I think it's funny how like sometimes life shifts you. Like things that happen in your life shift your art, right? And for me, I think the loss of my parents was, like with most people, was significant milestone moments where I literally changed. Like I held both my parents while they passed, different years, but it changed me. Like when my mother passed, it changed the way I got cast. Like before that, I was always the little girl, and like overnight, like all of a sudden, I was like the aunt and the mother, and it was crazy, But I had lost my dad probably about a year before he came to me. And I sat with my father for 2 weeks while he was passing. And where they said he had no brain function, I said, I sat with him. I watched him call for his mother. He was in a coma, but he was calling for his mom. And I watched it, right? So I was like, well, clearly he's there, right? And so I actually wrote a different play about that, like sort of loosely spun on that observation. But it really started getting me to think about, like, Dr. Angelou passed when she was 86. So she had lived this long life. And like, it just made me start thinking about, so the question to myself sitting with my dad was, what is my daddy thinking about? Like, is he having this life in review moment? Is he questioning every choice he ever made? Is he going through his regrets? Why is he calling for his mother? What is, there were all of these questions I had. And so when Jackie came to me, I think I didn't know this at the time, but I think I kind of put my experience with my dad into my question of Dr. Angelou, which was, and this was my original pitch, which doesn't have a lot to do with the script now, but I think this is significant, which is why I'm sharing it, is that I questioned it. She questioned, people are like, she's this icon and she's this and she's that. But did she think that? Yeah. Did she believe that? Did she get to the end of her life? And because she passed in 2014, and that's the height of when white folks was running around shooting us, killing us for no reason, that's all that was in the news. And it made me think, if she's watching this, which she probably was because Oprah had given her an iPad, like, what does she think of it? And does she think that her life mattered if this shit is still going on? Right? And so I started really grappling with that. And so where the play sits now is sort of a riff on that idea, but much more active. So I was able to channel that question into the mouth of a young woman who is in the height of that moment and discovering these things for the first time. And what does it mean to her to look to this icon and be like, but this is still happening. Yeah, you went to Africa. Yeah, you marched with King. Yeah, you were with Malcolm. Yeah, you did all of this, the Harlem Writers Guild and et cetera, et cetera. Yes, you rose, right? But you rose. Where are we?
Right. Wow, powerful. Yeah.
And so that's where the play kind of sits now. Because so my question to myself about it is, well, is that damning? She's our queen, and she is my queen, right? And so and one of the things that she said once upon a time was that nothing is sadder than a young cynic, right? And so like just basing the play on that and figuring out like the ins and outs of that and the relevancy of this thing that we think we can't obtain, you know. But she came from the same situation and worse, right? So if she can become, so can we.
Yes.
And so that's the exchange in the play.
Nice.
As it sits now. And yeah, I'm proud of it, and it matters. I'm proud of it.
Well done, Nambi, man. Like, what a journey to
Yeah.
go. And what brilliant. I mean, as everyone knows, I always set myself provocations. That's always a starting point for me. And, you know, just hearing the questions that you've asked and, you know, and how deep rooted they are, you know, with all of us. I think that we all start to question ourselves in terms of our purpose and living our purpose, and what does that really look like, and what is success, what does success even mean, you know? Is it attainable? You know, I think for all of us, that even the word being complacency and, you know, do we have that luxury? You know, like there's just so many things that come to mind as you were just talking just then, so thank you. But it really leads quite nicely onto why write plays, and who do you write for?
Wow, that's a big question. Why write plays and who do I write for? I think it has shifted throughout my life, who I write for. I would say now, because I spent so much time with in the, you know, thinking about ancestry again. To me, like I'm writing as is service. Like that's how I think of it. Like I'm surrendering to this thing that's larger than me, that God's spirit universe needs to use me for whatever reason, my perspective, my life experience, to filter something through. And so my job is to just be available and get out the way, right? That's really what my job is. And so who it's for, that's not for me to determine, because I'm just a servant. At the same time, who do I write for? Who do I think about when I write? Who do I hope my work impacts? Who do I hope the work is balm and healing for? Is that little Black girl that was on the south side of Chicago. That was me. That went to a school, the hallways were dark, the corners smelled like piss because grown men would walk in them in the middle of the day and urinate. This is where I came from, right? And there's no reason for me to have come from that to be where I am now. No reason, but the grace of God and art. Because somebody took me to the Goodman, right? Somebody took me to the Goodman and said, here's a play, watch. And it changed my life, you know? And so, and that play was Joe Turner's Come and Gone, August Wilson. And so was August writing for me? Absolutely he was.
Yeah.
Absolutely he was, right? And so why plays? To circle back to the first question, I question that in this pandemic space. Because I'm sick of Zoom boxes. Right? But in this time, I have produced, first of all, Samelia, I was so deeply inspired by your direction of Reggie Edmonds' what's the name of that play?
Rideshare.
Rideshare. Oh my God. So to this day, that is the only play I have watched on Zoom that has made any sense to me that I wanted to see again. The only one. Your direction was superb. And that was the moment where I was like, oh, this can work. And you know something, Ma? Because of your work, it inspired me to produce a online version of a play that I wrote for young audiences, which is now currently digitally touring across the country because of you. I actually almost called you to direct it, but my partner, that would not have made him happy. But I was like, because like you knew how to use the box and the space and the movement and the like I still see Kamal like his little mouth up here, blah, 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 and he's down here the next time and he's over here. Like I was like, this woman is brilliant. And you were the only person that I've seen take those sorts of risks and explode what that could be. The only one in a year.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh no, thank you, because you gave me something to build, you know. And so because you did that, and I saw it, and I was paying attention, I produced my show, as I said, and that play is now impacting young people all across this country, young Black children. Amen. All across this country, and it's a BLM piece. So it's designed to give our young people context for what they're watching.
Yes, so
right?
Important.
In a creative way. And all of that was because of you.
I actually think, just to say, since we're on that, since we are discussing Zoom and what the world looks like, I think it will actually is a great segue to kind of talking about your thoughts, Nambi, with regards to representation for Black playwrights, and also what you hope or the vision you have for the future with regards to rebuilding the arts post-pandemic. We're hopeful like that.
I'm hopeful like that too. Which part of that should I start with? Give me a piece of it.
All right, let's start with what we hope for, and then we'll come back to what it is right now.
Yeah. Okay. What I hope for is that we continue to amalgamate the form. My hope is that that we build new traditions. So Zoom plays were built out of necessity, but once we can go back to a free world, my hope is that we continue to explore what it can be, and the marriage of the digital world, and maybe even dimensionalizing the digital world in a space of live theater. I think that can be fun. But I'll be honest, like I have no desire to sit in a theater. I don't. But I think it's because I think I had to train myself to not miss it, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So that I could, otherwise I'd be sitting here.
Right, yeah, it's true.
Yeah, very bad.
Yeah. And then the other part of that question was where we are now. I think we are at a place where we're exploring the form, but I do think that it's out of necessity. And so, but I think it's to our industry's credit that we haven't given up, and that we continue to rise and to build and to explore. It's particularly wonderful to see right now too, that like if you're doing like a reading or public reading, whatever, or public production, even that, you know, the opportunity is there where it wasn't before, in a less expensive way, where you can work with actors across the country. Yes. You can have your dream list of, you know, I want these actors. Oh, that actor's not in town. No, actually, you can have that actor if you just schedule it on their time zone. So that works well. I think that's great. And I remember early in the pandemic, there was a moment where people didn't really quite grasp that. It's like, well, we have our company here, and no, you can call some people in New York. You can call some people in Chicago. You can call some people in LA. You can call some people in Texas. You can call some actor, you know, wherever they are. Somebody's hanging out at home with their parents because New York was crazy at the height of the pandemic. You can call them in Oklahoma and just get them on a call. And so I thought that was a real blessing that people started to think outside of their geographic space in terms of how to build art. I thought that was really, really, I think that's actually probably the best part of it for me, is watching, like, so the Zoom thing that I produced doesn't look like a Zoom event at all. Thank God. But it was produced all across the country. So we had an actor in Chicago, an actor in New York, an actor in Iowa, an actor in Georgia. The editor was in North Carolina. I'm in New York. The director was in New York. The producing coordinator was in Massachusetts. The booking agent is in Texas. It's just like,
love that.
Oh, and the musical director was in LA. So it's like, and we didn't even go international with it, but we could have.
Yeah. You could have.
Yeah, definitely. And there's still that potential there, right there. Like, you know, I think
yeah, that was great. That was great.
I think it's amazing because you're so right. It does expand your networks. You know, I mean, it does make you go, okay, who's out there now that we don't have these kind of restrictions? You know, we've known it all this time, you know what I mean? Where you go, well, why can't I work over there? And the fact that people are directing via Zoom, and that they are kind of it was just that organizations had to play catch up, right? It's just like these organizations that were working in a particular way had to start thinking more openly about how we create art, you know. But I really want to like talk to you again about adaptations, because I see you as like my adaptation queen. And I think there's just something so amazing about like getting the opportunity. Like, very few of us get the opportunity to adapt. And to be honest with you, with my curatorial hat on, my programming hat on, it's really interesting being in the rooms and having these conversations about who can adapt, right? Who can adapt the work. And that's why I asked you, just in terms of revisiting sort of the place that you have, the novels that you have adapted for stage, what has been the most rewarding and challenging aspects of that work?
The most rewarding and challenging aspects of the work. I would say the most rewarding part is, again, it comes back to those who've gone before. So the most rewarding part for me is being in close proximity to those souls, those ancestors, their words, the things that they wanted us to know. That means more to me than anything, like to sort of be up close and personal with that. The challenging part is the other reward is the blessing of surrender into that, right? So I very consciously, like, you know how like sometimes people will be like, okay, so for instance, I get my agent, first of all, shout out to Paradigm, right? They work their butts off for me, and they're always like, I'm like, well, can y'all slow down a little bit, because I got this to write and that to write. They're like, but Nnamdi, we have this meeting and we want you to read this IP, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. But they send you a lot of stuff, and a lot of it is adaptation. Like, somebody will send you some IP, and how do you respond to it? Are you interested in thinking about building a pitch on it for a series? And so, because these things happen so quickly, it's like they want you to read it, but you don't really have time to absorb it. It's almost like absorbing it to the point of how can I spin it, right? And what I've enjoyed about writing plays is the time that you get to not only absorb, but what's important to me is to allow the intention of the writer to sort of permeate me, you know, fill me. And not necessarily where I can spin it into something else. So with Native Son, like, because Native Son was so iconic and everybody's like, oh my God, don't mess it up. Somebody said that to me once, don't mess it up.
Crazy.
Yes, crazy.
The pressure is already intense. You know what I mean? The last thing you need is someone saying, "Don't mess it up."
Yeah, somebody said that to me on my opening night at
No.
court. Like they were there to see what's gonna mess it up.
Serious.
But oh shoot, I lost my train of thought. Oh, but just the best part of that is like just really with Native Son in particular, it was very important to me to let Mr. Wright speak to me and let me know everything he wanted me to know. And even when I was reading, because I had read the novel several times when I was a kid, you know, also, but you know, in that space, once somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, make this a play," and there's already an existing play, so I don't want to read that, right? So it was like to really like just read it. And anytime I would find myself starting to interpret, it's like, no, just read, you know. And it was a muscle I had to develop. And so and I think because I did that, like I think he respected that he was good, that he allowed me to sort of build it into what I discovered it could be, because I didn't know what it was going to be. And actually for a long time, probably the first year and a half of the script, it was really a very straight adaptation, and it was very like uninteresting to me. But again, my intention was, I'm just going to allow, I'm not going to decide, I'm just going to allow. The idea will arrive, it will absolutely arrive. And shout out to Kwame Kwei-Armah, because he came to Chicago to do a workshop of it. This was maybe in 2013, I believe. God, that feels like just yesterday. It was a long time ago. And can I curse on this? I can curse, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And so Kwame is so funny in a rehearsal, because he'll be like, oh, okay. And then he'll pull you aside and have these little chit chats with you in front of the actors. And it feels all like secretive. And he pulled me aside and he was like, he's like, Queen, how are you feeling about the play? And I said, you know, and he said, I could give fuck less. I could give fuck less about these characters. And I said, I feel the same way. I feel the same way. He said, what do you want to write? And I told him, I said, I have this whole vision. It's done with 6 actors. They're all black. He said, then why don't you write that? And and it was a commission by a white theater company that had intended for me to write roles for their ensemble members.
Right.
And so I was sort of shackled, and I do mean that, shackled into, I had to deliver roles for their ensemble people, but it wasn't my vision. And so, but I had to do that because I had to do that. And so he was like, you know, you write the play you want to write. And based on him saying that to me, I don't know if I've ever told him this, but based on him saying that to me, I threw it out. I threw out the play and I started over.
Yeah.
You know, and then there were some other unhappy accidents that happened in the world. You know, Trayvon Martin's killer had been acquitted. And then it reoriented the play again for me. It was like, well, now we have to get really inside this Black boy and not just be on the outskirts looking at him. And so based on that, I actually threw out the trial. I was like, I don't need the trial. Richard Wright wrote the trial for white people to understand what they did. Right. But I'm not interested in teaching white people about racism. I'm very interested about teaching our people how to love themselves and showing us a space where we can love ourselves. I have no interest in teaching you about how racist you are, none. And so because that was true, it was like, who does he put on? Where's the trial? He trials himself, because that's what happens is we get in our heads and we start questioning everything we've done when it was somebody else's fault to begin with, right? Yeah. That don't look like us. And so once Bigger figures that out in the play is over. You know, that he liberates himself. And what Richard does in the book, and I love my ancestor, but Bigger's liberation comes because he shares his humanity with this white lawyer, right? I wasn't doing that. I was not going to be looking into the eyes of no white man. You free. I see you.
Right.
I don't care if you see me. I see me. My mama and daddy
Mm.
see me. My ancestors see me. I'm good. Right. And not from a space of antagonism, because they don't look to us for definition.
Yeah, of validation or anything of those. Yeah, that's right.
So why should I look to you? I'm just saying.
That's right. That's right. I'm with you. But that artistic license, like giving yourself the artistic license, and obviously that was a journey for you. You know, do you think that changes how you would then adapt another novel in the future?
I think for me, because jazz came so soon after that, that and Toni was still alive, that when I was working on it, that it was really important to me to again honor her, and learn as much about her as humanly possible, and at the same time give myself permission to reinvent her form. Which is like, how do you do that when she's a genius? Who are you? You ain't nobody. But I will say that as I had discovered that, as you said, Sim, I did have to challenge myself to reinvent it because it was a different work. So the thing that I tried to do, which is something that Toni said was a success of jazz, was she felt like, I saw an interview with her where she said her biggest victory with jazz was the structure. And so I was like, shoot, structure, jazz as structure, music as structure. What does that mean as interpreted through me? And so I found a way to do that. It kicked my butt. Again, Kwame Kwei-Armah, he commissioned that, right? But let me tell you this about Kwame. He's a genius because that play was nowhere ready to be produced. I had lost my father that year. I was a mess. And he, as gently as he could, ushered me through that process, but still had a commitment to his theater to produce it. And so I'm sure he was not happy with it. I know I was not happy with that production. But what I will say about the production is that directorially, even if the script was not there as it could have been, it was beautiful. And it told a story and people were moved, you know, and it's nowhere close to where it is now. Like now that I've had some space and I've actually been able to build it, but I have often thought about like the artistry that he put on that stage in spaces where there was not story that made story. And it was the mark of a master artist, honestly, a master director who's also an actor and a writer. That he could see where the story, and he was like, okay, boom, this will help story, boom, this will help story. And it was beautiful. It was such a beautiful show. I got distracted by the pretty. There was some pretty men in that too.
Hello, eye candy up in there too. Yeah, that was
with some pretty men.
I love that.
Yeah, but so I just try to challenge myself to continue to reinvent. And so certainly because now I'm working with not necessarily an actual book, but you know, I'm still doing a lot of ancestor work. I'm doing this Stokely Carmichael play. I finished a rewrite on it this morning. And it's the same thing. Like, how do you honor these people and honor the lives that they lived, but tell your truth simultaneously? And so it's just surrender. It's all surrender. It's surrender and love is what I really try to lead with, you know.
So I want to touch on the fact that you still do plays and also are writing for screen because you're part of the staff writing team for The Chi. I mean, how do you balance all of that? Because that just seems like loads.
Well, the writer's room work is it's on a contract basis. So I was in the writer's room on season 3. But then I got another job on another show. So I just wrapped a room on Fox. which actually is based on a novel called Our Kind of People, which is about rich Black folk in Martha's Vineyard. But the writer actually just died. Like the guy who wrote the book died over the weekend. His name is Lawrence Otis Graham, and he passed away. And he wrote a very controversial book, I guess controversial, maybe about 20 years ago, where he went undercover at a golf, like a country club. He went undercover, like he's like this Ivy League, highly intelligent, like rich dude. And he went undercover as like a bellboy or something like a menial job. And then he sort of just recorded all of the, you know, the things that he heard and, you know, about how white people treated him. And he wrote a book about it, you know? And so that was sort of his first book that kind of boom. But he wrote this other book where he went across the country for 6 years and he interviewed all of like the Black elite as connected through Martha's Vineyard and like all that upper crust. And he wrote a book about it. And so the book was optioned for a series. I was in the writer's room. We did like a 10-week room on it, just writing like 6 or 7 episodes. And he passed away over the weekend. It's just crazy. Wow. So, but I don't know if that show's going to get picked up. I hope it does. Not for me, but for the creator, because she's a brilliant, dynamite Black woman. Mover and shaker, and she's amazing. And so I hope for her, because she got an overall, that I hope that the series goes. And, you know, and I'm also developing a screenplay with, it's based on another book. It's called the book is called Infants of the Spring. It's a Harlem Renaissance novel by Wallace Thurman, who passed away when he was in his early 30s. But he wrote The Blacker the Berry, Infants of the Spring, and he wrote another book called The Intern. And he was like a contemporary of Langston Hughes, like they were buddies. So if you ever do any research on Langston Hughes, like you'll find all of these letters, dear Wally, dear Wally, dear Wally. Well, Wally is Wallace Thurman. So they were contemporary. So it's all about the niggerati at 136th Street, just up the street, where I used to actually live 2 blocks from there, which I actually think is why I got the job. And so I was like, well, you know, I just live down the street. You know, I could just walk over there, right? And they were like,
with that attitude again.
Like, I had a little attitude. I'm like, this is my home. I'm born in Harlem. What? So I got the job. So we're about to do a reading of it next week, because I just did another rewrite of it. But they want to produce. So this production company, they're called Lager Lane out of LA. Lager Lane, and they got out of they were like EPs on Icarus, the film that got an Oscar several years ago. And so they love this material, they love this IP. They were like, Nambi, can you do this? I was like, okay. So it's been a couple years in the building, but because I'm not as well versed at writing for screen as I am writing for plays. So it's taken me a little bit of time to sort of learn the form and and how do you break this up. But I feel like it's a good script. And I feel like I finally have gotten my way into it, because again, it was like I wasn't treating it like I was, because I had all this stigma, like, oh my God, it's a screenplay. It's a screenplay. It's like, no, boo, it's character. You know character and you know story. Mm-hmm. So get out the way. Yo, bitch, get out the way. Get out the way. Get out the way. And so once I figured that out, I was like, Wallace Thurman is just another ancestor that I got to sit down and talk to. And so I did that. I literally opened a blank page and I started typing him a letter. And I had this whole ritual of like, he liked alcohol. So I literally burn like a limoncello candle every time I work on the piece. And I write to him and I say, hey, what do you think about this? And he's like, hey, use it, you know? And so we commune with each other, and establishing a relationship with him and realizing that I knew character and I knew story, so just get out the way, completely changed the scope of the script. Like, it's almost like a completely different film now.
Wow.
And so their intention is to make it. So hopefully this reading goes well and they go find some investors and they get it done.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. We've all got everything crossed for that. That sounds
Thank
amazing.
you.
And
Yeah.
actually, you know what? I wish we just had like, there's so many more questions I want to ask you. That we
So
both
many.
that we just can't get round to because we've got another round and I really want to get to that. But I do want to say, and actually you've hit the nail on the head because I was looking at the questions that we want to ask and I was like, what is the most sort of important question right now? And it struck me that I literally got an email from someone or a message from someone on Facebook, and they were like, "Oh, you're doing the writer's room. You know, I'm an aspiring writer, and this will really help me like get back into writing again." And you touched on it a little bit when you're talking about, you know, lighting the candle and wanting to sort of feel the presence of their ancestors or feel the presence of a particular writer, etc. But I wondered if you could really talk to your process. Like, is there something else that you can share? Like, I love when you said get out the way, like get out of the way and write. But if there's any other, I hate to call them tips because that sounds so like tips, but any other sort of words of advice, like how do you start? Where do you start? What's been really helpful to you in terms of getting into that space, especially if people experiencing writer's block or experiencing what helps you to get back into that space where you're hearing the character speak to you?
That's about 8 questions. Like, give me one. Give me one to start with.
Just in terms of, you know, what's your approach to writing for staging?
What's my approach?
Yeah. What's
so the thing that you asked too was if there was somebody and they wanted tips but not tips.
Right. Yeah. If they wanted, like, you know, because again, everyone always speaks about writer's block, writer's block. I live with, obviously, my husband is a playwright. So, you know, and it's really hard, you know, obviously I'm not a playwright or a writer in that way. But I guess it'd be great to sort of know other ways that other writers really combat, you know, writer's block.
Sure, writer's block. I think for myself, writer's block. Okay, see, this is a blessing. The sun streaming through my window right now. Sometimes I go stand outside if I feel blocked, and I just close my eyes and feel the sun on my face. Now, when I was a little girl, my father taught me that was a way to heal, right? To just go stand out in the sunshine. And I live across the street from a park. And so I've done that many times in my life. Like, it's so easy to just roll out and cross the street. But now Spirit has it right in my window, right when you ask that question, which is not a coincidence. So I think also the metaphor being nature to me is a very healing thing. So whether it's sunshine or wind or looking at trees or leaves or hugging my cat, I can't believe he's not been around.
I can't believe the cat hasn't appearance yet. Seriously.
Yeah, because he's normally like, but I mean, he does sleep during the day, so maybe that's what it is. Maybe sleep. But like to just be around things that that aren't concerned with the things that we distract ourselves with while we're living, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So when I was a younger writer, I can't afford this luxury now, but when I was younger, I used to just go get me a big fat Snickers bar. Not the small ones, right? But the big fat ones. I would go get me like a double-sized Snickers bar, and I would woo! Then I go back to writing. You know? But seriously, like the thought of like shifting your brain to something else and realizing what really matters, right? Like these deadlines, plays don't matter. Deadlines don't matter. But the thing that stays, that'll be here after I'm gone, hopefully, is the sun and leaves and trees and animals and all of those wonderful, beautiful things that are really like a source of inspiration for me. And I think sometimes that also extends itself to, I guess the big message is to just do something different. So shift your energy. So for me, it's going outside and standing in the sun. For someone else, it might be I run as well. So sometimes maybe just go get a run in. Sometimes it's exercise. Sometimes I get on the phone and I call somebody that I haven't talked to in a long time, just to shift my energy. Because what I know is that the play is still percolating in my brain, even though I'm doing something else. And then all of a sudden be like, aha, you know, where you're trying to push something. It's like, it's still surrender. It's like, you can push something and push something. This is going to be what it is. And it's not. You can meet the deadline, but it's nothing, right? So just to trust that everything already is, like Saru said earlier, this moment, this right now, right? And that it'll come. It'll come. And it always does. It always does.
Brilliant. And what's your approach to writing? So let's put writer's block to one side. It's over there. I know that Spike Lee has like all these different index cards, and he just literally
yes.
location, or I'm a masterclass.com junkie. And
me too, I hear you.
And he has like these index cards, and that's how then he takes them all out, and then he puts them in order, and that's how he creates. That's his starting. That's his way in. What would you say is your approach to writing?
I do a little bit of everything. I've done index cards and multicolored index cards and placed them on a board and moved them around, and this scene's gonna go here and da 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 da. I also like my freest space though is like to just start with a blank page. Sometimes people go, oh my God, a blank page. I love a blank page because there's endless possibility in that space, right? And so, but that's like when I'm first drafting something. And so sometimes the free space for me is, I may not necessarily, and this doesn't happen often anymore because I get so much commissioned work that I don't really have time to just write for myself, which my partner said to me recently, because I was like, I have all these plays. Hello, right? Complaining, but I digress. He was like, just do it. Just sit and write something for yourself. And so the blank page is that freedom space for me where I'll just write and I don't even know what I'm thinking about, but all of a sudden these characters are talking to each other. And then 10 minutes later, I have a 10-minute play and it won't, it'll be like, oh. And then it'll always end up being something I can use later and something else, or it actually might be a derivative of something I'm working on. So sometimes, I'm not answering your question. Sometimes what I do is I outline. This has only been since I started working in a writer's room that I started to understand the power of the outline because like I said, I like to start with a blank page, but it actually becomes quite tedious because like the structure, whatever, this scene, or it's too much of this, or, if you just outline that, boo, it's a lot faster. And so I started using an outline process. It does help me write faster. But honestly, it just depends on the work. It depends on how it occurs to me to do it. So I try to let it tell me instead of me saying, it must be this. This is my process. It's like, no, how are you going to lay into me? And how do you want to come out? And then based on that act of listening, it takes different forms. So I would say that that's true. I would say that there have been no two processes of, and I've written over 20 plays, and no two plays have been written the same way with the same process. This doesn't happen. I approach it like I do an actor, and I do have a process as an actor, but like whether I go see movies as part of developing my character or I read a lot, like it just depends. It just depends. So I do a lot of research. I love research. I'm surrounded by books. You can't tell that, but I'm like, books are everywhere. And so I love to read. I love to absorb. I love working with dramaturgs. I just like the intellectual part of that. And then it becomes kinesthetic. It becomes the fabric of how I approach everything. So it just depends. And there's a lot of different ways.
Yeah. No, you're giving us a lot there. You're giving us a lot
thank
there.
God.
Thank you so much. No, thank you so much. So I want to move on to what we do with every writer. And actually, this is the part that I really enjoy. And actually, most people enjoy this part too, to be honest with you, because it's a way for us to pay homage to others, right? It's a way for us to say, okay, you know, what other Black playwrights are out there that we want to kind of just like put a spotlight on, right? And so we always ask all our guests to name 3 plays and obviously playwrights of plays that they wish they would have read before they entered into the professional industry. And they don't have to be written at, you know, before you did, but just name 3. And so can you please share them and why you've selected the ones that you've selected? It'd be really great. You can start anywhere.
Sure. So when you asked me this question, the first thing that came to mind was a play called Seed by Rada Blank, which now, because of the success of 40-Year-Old Virgin, because success of her film,
yeah, which is great.
People have actually been talking about that play, but I saw the only production of it here in New York, only production of it in the country, in the world, I guess.
Wow.
Here in New York, National Black Theater did it on 125th Street. And to this day, that production was probably in like 2013, maybe 2012, somewhere in there. I feel like that's the best play I've ever seen in New York.
Wow.
I think it's, and I saw the original Fires in the Mirror with Anna Deavere Smith way back when I was a little girl. And it was a great production. It was great. She was amazing. But so it was something about Seed, and I loved it because it was poetic. It was about now. And it was just something about it. It was so special. And I went back to Chicago because I wasn't living in New York at the time. And I went to the Goodman. I was like, Tanya Palmer, you must know this playwright. And then, nothing happened with it. But hopefully now, she'll get it done and she'll make it into a film or whatever. But I just thought it was dynamite. That was the first thing that came to mind. And then the other pieces, I sort of had to do a little bit of digging and to think about it a little bit more, because I as a Black dramatist, I'm very clear that there's a lot that I don't know because I went to PWI, and so like the part of me that's like, but now you're a grown woman, so it doesn't matter what you didn't get, it matters what you can go get now. And so what can I go get now? And so because I've been spending so much time in the Harlem Renaissance between jazz and the film I was telling y'all about, there's a play by Langston Hughes, and it's called Don't You Want to Be Free? And it's a short play, but it basically spans like the beginning of Black time to the present of his time and beyond. And it's poetic, and it's kind of laced with a whole bunch of his poems and spirituals and songs, and it's funny, and it's I've never seen it, I've only read it, but like just thinking about him like blowing up the form that way, and the intentionality behind telling the truth about Black people. And so like there's an overseer and he's got a whip and whoosh, whoosh. It's just like, okay. But it's but like there's something about that play that is really really kind of magical, and I would love to see it or at least hear it. But it's called Don't You Want to Be Free, Langston Hughes.
I've just written that down because I'm gonna find that.
Find it, and we should do a reading of it. Yeah. I would love to hear it. And it's kind of like impressionistic in a way. So there's no set. Like it's just like poems and songs and Black folk.
Yeah, love it.
I love it too. I love it. And then the third play that I was thinking about, it was a cross between 2, and I don't know if you want to hear both.
Well, Sim had 5. You're okay.
Oh, okay. Okay. So I don't know if you all know Aisha Rahman. She's a playwright out of the Black arts movement. She wrote a whole bunch of plays, like Mojo and the Say So is her play. You probably heard of that one.
Yeah.
But she wrote an opera. I've never seen it. I've only heard about it. It's not published. But she wrote an opera about Malcolm X that's called
Really?
X.
No.
And you can't find it anywhere. But I tell you, the only reason I even know about it is because when I first came to New York, I was living in this apartment, a friend of my father's, and she had all these books everywhere. You know, I love books, and so I'm in the books. And she had a program from a presentation of it. I was like, what? I don't know about this. And I opened it, and there were people's names in it that I recognized, you know, from Black theater. But I was just like, oh my God. And it was called X. And, you know, she passed away in 2014, 2016. I don't remember when she passed, but not that long ago. But it wasn't published. And I don't know where it is, but I would love to find it. Like, just think about it like an opera of Malcolm. That has to be.
Can you, what? We need to find that. We will find it. Someone will have it as well. Like
someone's got to have it.
When I was doing the Black Play Archive, and obviously like finding all the plays that have been produced in Britain over the last 70 years, people would just have these plays in their basement, under their bed, you know, somewhere. So someone somewhere has got it. Do you know what I mean? So if you've got it, please contact us. We would love to get a copy of that script.
X.
Definitely, yeah.
X. Yeah. And so those are the three. And but also the thing that about these writers that are prominent in their day, and then the next generation doesn't know who they are.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very strange. Like Aisha Rahman was not given to me. Like, I think there was a production of Mojo and the Say So at Steppenwolf. Actually, I feel like that's true when I was a young actor. But because it was at Steppenwolf, I assumed the writer was white, because that's what they used to just do back in the day. I'm sorry to say that, Wolf, I love you, but that's what they used to do back in the day. Ain't no color up in there. And so I think we had no internet then. That's how old I am. I don't remember being consciously just, I just made an assumption and I kind of turned it off. But like all of these writers that were not given to us, that they give us Lorraine and they give us August, but there's all these other people. There's all these other people around there, around them that you don't get. And but I wish that I had known more. I wish that I had had more of an education that way as a young dramatist. And I wish now, I should say, I look forward to the time when I have time to educate myself fully, because now there's no reason for me to not do that, other than my time is split up with 80 projects at once. But it's a good question. And I think that Lincoln Center is actually doing something very similar. I don't know if you've heard about this. But Sorette Scott, I'm building a project with her right now, and she told me that she had just got out a casting call because they're also asking playwrights like about a play from the that people don't know about, and then they're doing readings of them. Amazing. And I think sharing them publicly. So it's a good idea, and it's in the air. So
yeah. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. I think that just making the work accessible, and I think it needs a village to do this work. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, the fact that they're doing it, even the work that's been done at that I did, and actually it was Kwame Kwei-Armah's brainchild, and he brought me in to troubleshoot the idea and manage it. But that for me was such an amazing and unique experience, just to have that time to research, to find all of those plays. And I knew, and that's why I do the work that I do, Saru and I do the work that we do, because it's a responsibility that I carry. You know what I mean? It's a responsibility to ensure that the plays are not forgotten. you know, that the plays actually, like, that we preserve our history in this way, and we preserve our legacy as well. So, and we build on that, right? We build on that knowledge. So that's definitely important. So I'll definitely look out for what they're doing in New York. Like, I'm so excited about that. I'll keep my ears to the ground on that one. Or if you get any information, please do send it my way.
Sure.
Nandi.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
I will. Absolutely.
I think
So
also
one
just to
last
say as
thing.
well,
Sorry.
oh, just to say as well, if anybody else is also aware of other work that is similar, please just kind of let us know as well. Because I think there's nothing sadder than what Nambi said, where she said that, you know, it just wasn't given to us, you know, and I think that just broke my heart because
Still
it's
not
true.
given to us.
You know, yeah, it's still not given to us. And it's just, you know, so if the people who are out there highlighting, showcasing, celebrating all of this incredible work, my goodness.
Yeah.
We applaud you.
Let's join forces, and let's ensure that
Forces.
we just give it a brighter light, you know, give our work a brighter light. So just really
Please.
quickly, this is a speed round. This is really quick.
Okay.
One word answers, and then we'll let you go, Nam, because you need to get on with those 8 projects, and we are keeping you here hostage. But we love you so much. We just don't want to let you go. To be
So
honest.
much. Never.
Aw.
Everyone needs to know. People who don't know about you, you already, like, people know about you, but those who don't, get to know. Okay, guys. So this is just like a real quick lightning round that we've included, and literally just one word answers, please. At the very most, one sentence, but if you can keep it to one word, that'd be great.
I'm with you. I got you.
Okay, cool. All right, let's go.
Okay, question number 1. Nambi, what would you like to do, or what do you like to do when you are not writing?
Laugh.
We will accept laughing.
Thanks a lot.
You said laughing. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
LA or New York?
Both.
Ooh.
Cheating.
If you could tell, yeah, it's a massive cheat, but we'll accept that too because
I love both places. I'm born in New York, but I love LA. I love the sunshine. You know, I like to be outside. So
You do like to
but I
be
love
outside.
New York. So
Also New York
and Chicago. I had all 3.
No, this is more than one word.
All right, number 3. If you could tell your younger self something, what would it be?
Shut up and listen.
Ooh, I'd say that of me too.
What character in any of your plays do you relate to the most?
Baby and Milk.
I love that play.
What is the best money you ever spent as a writer?
Grad school.
No, that's a good answer.
That's a great answer.
What is the best review that you've received for one of your plays?
I don't read reviews anymore. But when I did, the first production of Milk, sorry, this is so many words. The reviewer said Milk was like sunshine on broken glass.
Oh, nice.
Okay, reviewer. Okay, can you name one thing that makes for a good story?
Joy.
If you could choose one writer to co-write with on a project, who would you choose?
Can we come back to that one?
No.
Okay, we'll come back to that one.
Nabi, you're terrible at this. I love it. Okay, name 2, according to Nambi, of the greatest Black female playwrights of all time.
Of all time?
Mm-hmm.
2.
2.
I would say oh God. This is hard. Audrey Kennedy. And I don't know. Lynn Nottage, I guess. I mean, I don't know.
Okay, cool. All right, classics or contemporary plays? Or contemporary writing, should I say? Classics or contemporary?
This is so hard.
Come on! Terrible! I forgot to say that there's like 10 seconds. We're gonna have a whole countdown and everything, but
Both.
oh, Lord. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the question that you missed, and then we're gonna wrap this up. If you could choose a writer to co-write with on a project, who would you choose?
Living or dead?
You can have, you know what, for this, it could be living or dead for you.
Up to you.
That's such a great question.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God. I don't know. I will email you when I think of an answer.
Come on, Nambi. You got it. And no one else would be offended. Look, we know that there'll be many more. There's more than one.
I feel like I have to think about it because I know that there's somebody that I do, but I'm not thinking about it.
Okay. Well, Nambi. I feel so sad.
My earring. My ear keeps popping out.
Oh gosh. Okay, you can't think right now.
We'll have to put it in our socials then. Like
We're
you
gonna
have to email. Yeah.
We'll ask the audience. Okay, who do you think she's gonna say? Who do you think that Nambi's gonna say in terms of who she?
I can't believe I don't have an answer. I'm so sorry. Who would I like to co-write with?
Yeah.
But do you know what I love about the fact that you have so many answers for these one-word questions? What I absolutely love is that you clearly have a lot of love for what you do and for so many aspects of it. The fact that you can't even choose is wonderful.
No, I'm not buying that.
I am buying it. I am there for it.
Thank you, Saru. Thank you, Saru.
Choose one, girl.
Thank you, Saru.
You're welcome, Nambi. I got you. Okay.
I'm playing. No,
Because it's a multifaceted question. It's like, who would make your writing, like who would complement your writing? Who has the aesthetic or not an aesthetic or aesthetic you would like to combine with, and who will challenge you, and who, I mean, it's such a complicated question.
But who would you just dream to write with? I mean, living or dead. Who would, you know, look.
Or even if it's just to figure it out with.
Yes, right? Because some of these things you're not going to know until kind of everyone signs on a dotted line. Sometimes you're just like, you don't know what you're going to get.
There's so many people to choose from.
I know.
She loves everyone.
I'm looking at my books now.
Would it make it easier if it was only people who are living? Would that make your answer easier?
I mean, it would narrow it.
Okay, so if it's just living writers, so it's just living writers, who would you choose to co-write with?
Living writers, who would I choose to co-write with? God, that's a hard one. I'm sorry, I'm so bad at this.
No, you're good. You know what? Let's pick you on the spot. Let's let it go. Let it marinate. Let's come back to this at a later time.
I love it. I love it.
Even though it's meant to be a lightning round, you can email us.
Sorry.
Do you know what? I think I'm already fast forwarding to the future and we're receiving Nambi's answer and it's like 6 writers that she's saying, well, maybe this one or that one.
This one for this reason and this one for that reason. Oh, I have an answer. I have an answer.
Wow.
Okay. And I've collaborated with this person.
Okay.
Does that count?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay,
I'm happy to accept anything.
Okay. There is an artist in Singapore.
Okay.
Ooh.
And his name is Chong Zi Chin.
Yes.
He's a writer, and he's a director, and he's absolutely brilliant. He's one of the most brilliant people I've ever worked with in my life, and he's hilarious. So you'll be talking about something really deep and serious, and then laughing, like gut splitting laughing in this next moment. He's just a joy to work with, and he would be, he's just great to collaborate. That would be my dream, to continue working with him and building with him.
Oh.
We did it. We did it. We did it.
Yes.
This has been an absolute, you said joy before for one of your answers, and that's what it's been. It's been an absolute joy. I'm so thrilled that you spent this time with us and you shared your wisdom with us, and yeah, more power to you, sis. Much love to you, and hopefully we'll meet again on here at some point in the future. But thank you so
Yes.
much.
Thank you. Thank you
Yes,
both.
thank you.
Mwah.
All right then.
All right then. Okay, everybody. Thank you. Thank you so much to Nambi, to Sim, as always. And again, this has been Beyond the Canon, the Writer's Room. And I mean, honestly, just tune in for more, because we've got incredible writers coming up.
Bye.
Bye.